Did you know that Alan Wake, Control, Max Payne and Quantum Break are all connected and in a shared universe? Yes, Move Over MCU, the RCU, or the Remedy Connected Universe, is a very real thing. If you've played Alan Wake 2 and Control, you'll be aware that these two series are in fact very closely linked. Their connection is impossible to miss. Control featured an entire area focused on Alan Wake in the AWE expansion. And Alan Wake 2's story heavily features the FBC, or Federal Bureau of Control, also just known as the Bureau, the main organisation featured in Control. To understand the root of how they link together and how Max Payne and Quantum Break fit in, we need to head down a rabbit hole of supernatural forces. And where better to start off than by digging into who the Bureau is exactly. The Bureau is a clandestine US government agency, headquartered in the oldest house, New York. Their task? Researching, containing, and controlling paranatural phenomena. In other words, they study supernatural stuff and try to keep it all secret while stopping it from destroying the world. One of the major phenomena the Bureau deal with are known as AWEs, or Altered World Events. These are events where the laws of reality are altered or affected by paranatural forces, which of course is what happens in 2010 during the events of Alan Wake, also known as the Bright Falls AWE. The cause of this AWE is an entity known as the Dark Presence, or the Shadow, or as the more official sounding, Paranatural Entity A-010. The Dark Presence is a resonance force, capable of infecting people and turning them into shaded individuals. It also appears to reside at the bottom of Cauldron Lake, a place considered to be a threshold to another dimension known as the Dark Place. During the events of Alan Wake, his wife Alice is taken by the Dark Presence to the Dark Place, but she is ultimately freed by Alan, who is then himself trapped in the Dark Place, leading into the events of Alan Wake 2. A large source of these paranatural events and entities seems to stem from a place called the Astral Plane.
Airplane?
Astral plane. It's big, white, and empty.
This is a common place visited during Control. It appears as a strange dimension, made mostly of a large white void and floating geometric shapes, where a giant inverted black pyramid hangs overhead. This pyramid is used by an entity or group of entities known as the Board to communicate telepathically with those capable of mentally projecting themselves into the astral plane. The agenda of the Board isn't entirely clear, but it appears largely beneficial to humans, aiding the FBC in its goals to combat and understand paranatural events. However, events that take place during the Foundation DLC clearly show they are not to be entirely trusted. The astral plane itself is likewise not entirely understood, but it's thought to be a sort of mindscape, acting as a conduit of sorts between our reality and our collective unconsciousness, the ethereal unconscious knowledge and beliefs of all humankind. And it's believed the astral plane is the source of many paranatural forces and responsible for the creation of altered items. During an AWE, certain items seem to interact with the astral plane and gain unique properties or powers. Often these items represent archetypes within the collective unconscious, things that we give psychological significance to, from art like books and music through to personal items. Examples of such objects include manuscript pages and the clicker, a detached light switch that Alan's mum gives him as a child to help his fear of darkness. These altered items were then able to be used to manipulate the altered reality created by the Dark Presence. Another form of altered item is what's known as an object of power. These objects seem to have deeper links to the astral plane and the Board, and are notably powerful because they can be wielded by para-utilitarians, or those capable of using paranatural powers like Jesse Faden. These objects of power include items such as the Service Weapon, a shape-shifting weapon used to determine a chosen one. In Control, this manifests as the Board determining who is the director of the Bureau, but it's theorized that the Service Weapon may have also at times manifested as powerful items in folklore such as Excalibur and Mjolnir. A major and mysterious character in both Control and Alan Wake 2 is of Artie the Janitor. While he may seem just like a strange Finnish cleaning man on the surface, Artie is also known as Entity A-001, and is a seemingly benevolent paranatural entity. His origins and motivations, however, are entirely unknown, although it's worth noting that the name Artie comes from an old Finnish god of water. Water, of course, playing a huge role in Alan Wake's story.
Water is the memory of the world. Water finds its way.
Old gods, meanwhile, are another common thread, with the band The Old Gods of Asgard appearing in both games, with one of their songs playing a vital role in Control, and the band and its members Thor and Odin playing crucial roles in Alan Wake 2's story. There's even a nod to them in Quantum Break, with the band Stone Crow being labelled as an Old Gods of Asgard tribute band. While the connective tissue between Control and Alan Wake runs deep, both the Max Payne and Quantum Break universes are clearly linked to this universe too, albeit in a more roundabout way. This is possibly due to licensing issues, as the Quantum Break and Max Payne IPs are currently owned by Microsoft and Take-Two Interactive respectively. Or maybe it's just multi-dimensional shenanigans. I'll leave it up to you to decide. In the world of Alan Wake, Max Payne does not exist. Not directly, at least. But Wake writes a series of detective stories led by a character named Alex Casey, a name notably that shares more than a few letters with Max Payne. Outside of these novels, Casey appears as a main character in Alan Wake 2, a real FBI agent who seemingly just coincidentally shares a name with Wake's famous detective.
The PI from your books has the same name as me. Great. Moving on.
However, this wasn't his first appearance, as we first physically saw Casey appear as an FBI agent in Quantum Break during an ad for something called Return, which is clearly a story about Alan Wake. Notably, Casey is played by Sam Lake, Remedy's creative director, who was famously used as the character model for Max Payne. We see Casey appear alongside Wake during a talk show, in between with Mr. Door. As part of this, Casey pulls his iconic Max Payne grimace, and we also later see him don some of Max's iconic duds and slip into some very Max-esque dialogue.
How far would he go to create a perfect work of art? Or would he be the next victim?
It's clear as day. In this universe, Max Payne is Alex Casey. Alan Wake is mentioned at other points during Quantum Break 2. Early on in the game, there's a chalkboard filled with scribblings related to Alan Wake, as well as AWEs. When interacting with the board, Jack Joyce, your character, even remarks,
Alan Wake. Love this guy's stuff.
Clearly putting them into a shared reality. However, Jack Joyce is played by Shawn Ashmore, who does appear in Alan Wake 2, but as a completely different character, Tim Breaker.
Tim Breaker. And let me just say, I'm happy you two are here.
Although these two characters, just like Casey and Payne, may actually still be one and the same. If you played Quantum Break, you'll be aware its story heavily revolves around time travel and the concept of breaking time. Quantum Break, Tim Breaker, Time Breaker, I think you can see the link. During Alan Wake 2, you can also find Breaker trapped in the dark place. He talks about often dreaming of being someone else, saying the following.
In dreams, I'm often someone else. A different person with a different name, living a different life in a different world.
He's also obsessed with figuring out the story behind Warlin Door, the host of In Between with Mr. Door, as he believes Door is the key to what's happening to him. Notably, he doesn't think the Door from the talk show is the Door that he's dealing with.
Warlin Door.
The talk show host?
No, that doesn't sound like him. The guy has many disguises, but a talk show host? No. I'll keep looking.
The other Door he may be referring to could very likely be Martin Hatch, a major character of Quantum Break. Again, the names bear mentioning. Door, Hatch, also flip the W and add a small line on the L, and Warlin becomes Martin. In Quantum Break, Martin Hatch, played by the late great Lance Reddick, is a mysterious figure and CEO of Monarch Solutions, the major villains of the piece, and an organization specializing in time travel technology. Hatch is revealed to exist in multiple timelines all at once, and appears to have infinite versions of himself across the multiverse. While in Alan Wake, Door plays an even more mysterious and cryptic role, seemingly responsible for dragging Breaker into the Dark Place and clearly having a large amount of control and influence in the Dark Place, but how and for what purpose exactly isn't made clear. But what is clear is that Hatch and Door are clearly very closely connected and probably just different versions of the same person. Perhaps some of these are little more than nods, winks, and Easter eggs between all these series, but to me, these links seem to all be pointing towards there being a bigger picture than that. And while much of the what, who, and why of this strange, multi-game interconnected universe still remains a mystery, it's a universe where time travel, supernatural forces, and alternate dimensions exist. And clearly, every thread can lead to another through any number of possible junctions. Indeed, this may have left you with more questions now than ever, and there's a plethora of connections between these games that I haven't even touched on, that may explain some of it, but will probably just leave you with even more questions. Are there any cool theories or interesting connections between these games that you've noticed that I missed? Let us know in the comments below.